Welcome to Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. In the next half hour, you'll obtain insights and tools to transform your life using the biblical principles found in the 12-step program. We believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience because we all have struggles in life. Struggles with addictions, food, depression, anxiety, and relationships, to name a few. You'll be encouraged to see how others have found a new way of life with hope for the future through life recovery. Your host is Steve Arterburn, founder of New Life Ministries and Women of Faith, author of over 100 books, and teaching pastor at Northview Church in Carmel, Indiana, one of the 20 largest churches in America. Steve is the co-editor of the Life Recovery Bible, the #1 selling recovery Bible. With over 3 million copies sold, this is the Bible given to inmates by Prison Fellowship and the Pew Bible for the Salvation Army. Now here's Steve.
Hi there, Steve Arterburn here, and welcome to Life Recovery Today. Hope we have something to say that might help you in the recovery process or help you get in the recovery process. You know, I've talked about these things called fatal excuses. You don't want to be hanging on to a fatal excuse. There's a little thing I call PFF, and it's personal failure focus. And if all I ever do is focus on the ways that I've messed up and failed, guess what? That distraction becomes a fatal excuse not to do anything else with my life. Now, many of you know, when I messed up big time earlier in life, I thought my job was to go around and make sure God knew nobody ever felt more shame than I did. And so I thought that's what He wanted. That isn't what He wanted. No one needs to focus on personal failure. I mean, if you're a believer, then you know you're forgiven for that. If you're not a believer, I would hope that maybe you'd look into that, because one of the great things about Christian recovery is when it comes to those defects, those things, those acts we've done to other people that maybe we need to make amends for, well, what a great thing that we know that we can ask for forgiveness from God, wipes the slate clean because of Christ. Pretty wonderful thing. Now, there's another thing that we do, and that is, it's not our failure, but we've been mistreated. And it's horrible the way some folks have been mistreated. We're going to talk about that today. But if my obsession becomes the mistreatment, then I'm always focused on what happened. And what we need to do, of course, in our recovery, get through it, get over it, and then get beyond it. When we get beyond something, we literally are not negating or minimizing the damage that was done. But what we are doing is that we're not allowing the pain from then to seep in and destroy whatever serenity we have today. Sometimes we go into recovery and we discover that we've got a big, huge roadblock on the way to recovery. Maybe we've been abused by somebody and it's just almost impossible for us to move beyond it. Maybe we're still in their grip, either emotionally or physically. Well, today we're going to talk about that. And it's really, really tough when somebody abuses you, and then you have that task of forgiving. But with God's help, you can do it. We'll be back right after this.
Are you going through your struggles alone? Do you want someone to talk to help you through your pain? Do you feel like a failure when you relapse again, telling yourself, next time will be different? Don't walk this path alone anymore. Join a life recovery group today and be a person that your friends and family can be proud of. God created us to be in community, and we believe everyone can benefit from a life recovery experience. There are life recovery groups all over the country, and if there isn't one in your area, we can help you start one. Life Recovery brings recovery to you, right where you are. You'll take a journey with others to find healing and freedom. Whether you're looking to join a group or start one, New Life Ministries is here for you. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or visit liferecoverytoday.net.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. I'd like to introduce you to, and then I'm going to read some of these qualifications, Sandy Jocoy. Hi, Sandy. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thanks for welcoming me. So good to be here.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being here. And I just have to tell people all the different things that you are certified in and qualified to do, because it's really quite a list. Now, first of all, Sandy is a certified sex addiction and partner specialist. We're going to talk about that. So when it comes to EMDR and some of the trauma treatments, she knows how to do that and to do it well. As you know, Sherry Keffer on our New Life Live, trauma specialist, really does a great job with that. But we're going to talk about this dealing with the trauma that the spouse experiences. I'm one of those people that experienced it. Now, she loves working with the partners of sex addicts. She also has a podcast, which is called The Recovery Junkie, and she's a co-host of that. But not only has she been in this addiction recovery process for 38 years, she runs a group that is a Christ-centered recovery group, and that makes me really delighted in what she does and that she is here. So, Sandy, let's just start from the beginning. There are a lot of things people could do in life. There are a lot of specialties that they could have, but what was it that caused you to say, you know what, I think I want to really help those who have been traumatized by a sex addiction, or maybe a sex addict, or somebody that's just acting out? What led you to that point?
Well, 2005, with my initial discovery, when I found out that my husband was struggling with sexual integrity issues. I'd always known that I was going to do this for my whole life. I knew that this is where I wanted to go. I always thought I was going to work in addiction until the discovery in 2005, when I realized that my life blew up, our worlds blew up, and there wasn't a lot of help out there back then for partners of sex addicts. There wasn't a lot of help for wives. There was a lot of help in the church for the guys, but not so much for the wives. And so I dug myself into that, and that has become my love. I love the ministry work. I love the therapy work. It is really a joy for me. It is my happy place, honestly. I love working with partners of sex addicts.
Well, I remember back when, just a few years earlier than that, when I discovered that my previous wife was unfaithful. I remember just the incredible pain, and of course I didn't even know pain could be sourced from fear. But the pain was fear of the future, fear I was going to lose everything, fear for my daughter, all those kinds of things. What did you do back then that helped you the most get to a place where now you're helping other people? What was key in that?
Wow, that's a big question, because my journey, nowadays if a partner comes in and they're looking for some kind of partner support, there's so much accessible to them. But when I started that journey, most of the support was for the addict side. And so I grew up, I had the part of my process that God had prepared me for, I think, coming into 2005 and where we are now in 2021, is that I had been actively involved in my own recovery process as basically a late teenager. In 1983, I got sober off drugs and alcohol. So I had an understanding about where to go in order to get healing, in order to get repair. But in this particular, in 2005, I knew that there was going to be more that was going to be needed other than just being in 12-step for me. This was my personal journey. And so the first place I went was into the therapy world. I tried to go get I really dug back into my addiction recovery and the 12 steps. My 12-step journey was mostly Alcoholics Anonymous. But I started to seek out some therapeutic help. And the therapy help, while it was helpful, people had really good intentions. They really didn't understand the nature of sex addiction-induced trauma and betrayal trauma on a partner. So I ended up back at my church. I went into my church, which is Calvary Community Church in Westlake Village, and walked into my care pastor, Steve Day, and said, "Look, we need some help. You've got all this help for the guys, pardon me." And and I'm dying out here. Like I see dead people. I don't know what to do with myself. And that's where the real help started, because I got some pastoral help around me, opened the door for some other curriculums and partner help that could help me start to get the language about what was going on inside of me and what was going on for me. So the best help, the 12-step help and the recovery support was adamant and very, very important to the process. But I think being in a community of people that could understand what I was going through and gave the language, had the language to express what I was feeling was imperative for me.
Okay.
That was imperative.
I've spoken at your church before, but here's something more important. So, codependency, the word codependency, that was thrown at me when all of this happened. And codependency is a concept that a lot of us need to understand and deal with, but it can be used as a kind of a shaming label too. Talk about that a little bit, because I certainly felt it.
Well, probably back in the day when you were looking for help, as I was in 2005, the mainstream form of help was to send partners to the Anon versions of the addiction 12-step recovery programs. And they were viewing it almost like, that you're almost sicker than the person, the addict that was acting out in their addiction, and that you were a contributing factor to the problem that was going on, and that I needed to go get help. And putting that label on me, I have to tell you, Steve, I did go to some partner 12-step programs. I think there's some value in it, but it was really difficult for me to walk in there, because the reality is I had no idea that this was going on.
Yeah.
This was something that jumped me. So in our profession now, we don't, especially in the training that I have, we don't view this. We don't start with the premise that the partner, male or female, walking into the room or walking into a support group is struggling with codependency. Although, once the injury starts to get repaired and there's some healing, the traumatic responses calm down, there is room in the recovery and the healing journey to take a look at, are there components to our process where I show up codependently? Yeah. But codependency puts the blame back on the partner, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it's a great blessing when you have some insight and you have the ability to kind of talk back to some folks, and some people aren't there yet. But I remember a psychologist saying to me, so what was your role in her having that affair? And I said, none. I said, when it comes to difficulties and problems in the marriage, well, I was a donor to that as she was. But I had zero to do with a decision on her part to be unfaithful.
Yes.
And I just heard over and over people asking that question, what was your role in this person's addiction, or this person, and you have no idea that they're even doing anything. You can't enable something that you don't know is there. So it really is important for people to get that, because you can be struggling with the shame of this and take on that codependent label in a shaming way, and not know that there are people out there like Sandy that are fighting for you and want you to see it from a different perspective. All right, I got to take a break, but when we come back, we'll talk more about sexual addiction and recovery and why it's so important to get it right. Because if you don't get it right, you can really live a very shame-filled, distorted life. We don't want that for you.
It's hard to find a trusted friend when you're in crisis, someone who's been there and understands, but who also has the training and skill to give you practical help. Family, friends, and churches want to help, but often they're not equipped to care for those dealing with problems like addiction and pornography, infidelity, anger, depression. New Life Ministries is here to provide help and hope in life's hardest places. We're not focused on making people feel better. We're focused on helping people do the work that will help them be better. At New Life, we have resources available to help you, like books, DVDs, CDs, workshops, and our network of licensed counselors. If you need help, call 1-800-NEW-LIFE and begin your new life today.
Welcome back to Life Recovery Today. Sandy Jocoy is our guest today. And maybe you have been where she was, where I've been. All of a sudden you discover something is going on and it's not good. In fact, I'm being betrayed, and it can be very, very traumatic. So, Sandy, when somebody has been betrayed, in most circumstances, let's say, it's a matter of the partner has been unfaithful. Now they've been found out, and some choices have to be made. What do you require of this other person? And many people don't require anything of the other person. And so they miss an opportunity for that person to get help. But here's where I'm going with this. Sometimes a person isn't just discovering that this spouse is unfaithful. They're not really safe. We know they're not safe sexually because he's been having sex with somebody else, or she has. Mm-hmm. But what do we do to that person that is scared to death for their life, maybe if they even contact somebody for help? What do you say to that person that just doesn't want to risk their life in reaching out for help?
Boy, that is, I get this all the time. You know, the partner group that me and my leadership team out there at Calvary, we've got 50 women in there, 50 partners. And when they come in and they sign up for that class and they get on that list to get in that starts in the fall, we get a lot of questions like that, like, I'm afraid to walk in here. I don't want my spouse to know that I'm in here. I certainly don't want my church community to know that I'm in here. So the most important piece of creating that safety for people is to provide a safe place that's got some confidentiality, some anonymity in it. You know, the safety of being able to take the emotional risks necessary for the healing to occur. That is the foundational piece that needs to happen for partners in that. And we need to validate and to acknowledge that their sense of safety is probably valid and real. We would never ask somebody to step back into a relationship where they had those safety concerns. So it is quite a task, especially if the support system around them isn't safe to even be able to share this.
Yeah.
So when people call us and reach out to us, whether it's in my therapy office or whether it's in a church ministry that I'm involved in, we try to really come alongside that partner to try to create some boundaries around, like, what do you say? How do you step in? What do you do with the books that you're using? Maybe you need to cover them. Maybe they need to go into a trunk of your car. We try to brainstorm with that partner, how can we make this safe for you to come in and take that risk? Because with this is where it gets so tricky, because the safety piece is imperative in order to do the work. But without truth, you can't really feel safe.
Yeah.
And so that's the double bind for the partner, right? How much do I give? How much do I withhold? Where do I go to get this help? Nowhere in a partner's traumatic impact do they feel that there's going to be safety for them to do that work. So that is certainly a hurdle that we need to help the partner, male or female, to enter into their own recovery journey.
Sometimes a church isn't safe,
Right.
And it's so refreshing to hear that you have these groups for the partners of sex addicts where it is safe. You know it's safe. It's anonymous. It's confidential. When you hear somebody say, "Look, I'm just going to live with this because God doesn't like divorce," what do you say to that person? Because we know God doesn't like divorce, and we also know God doesn't like people being betrayed. So what do you say to someone that is using something like that as an excuse to do nothing?
I like how you put that as an excuse to do nothing. I think, like, most people would really like to be able to do something, but they don't have the courage. They don't trust that the process is going to work. So this is how I handle that when it comes to me, is that I remind these partners, male or female, that what they're experiencing isn't just a difficult season, that there's been a traumatic impact to their body physically, emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, their identity, all kinds of different ways that this relationship, this attachment rupture, which is what it is, that potentially could be bridging all the way back into their childhood, and they don't even know that that childhood stuff is getting activated, that left untreated, over spiritualizing it, if you will, to some degree. Left untreated, it's going to cause all kinds of problems. And so maybe doing the work and allowing yourself to step into, as you said at the top of the program here, Steve, where you said some people really focus on their own feeling and their own failures, and some people really focused on what's been done to them. Addicts walk in having to deal with their own failings. Partners walk in dealing with what has been done to them. But the reality is that for the marriage to sustain, you also have to do the other side of it. And so that starts in that recovery journey, right? The ability to take those emotional risks, to deal with the trauma, to take an honest and open assessment of the grief and the losses that you've had to go through, basically re-narrating your story. If they can get into that recovery process, people usually start to see the value that regardless of whether or not the marriage relationship sustains or not, that partner is going to get their healing.
In the couple of minutes we have left, there are people watching this and they have been betrayed, or they know it's going on, and maybe they are using some excuse to do nothing. What is another common excuse that people use not to get help, and what do you say to them?
A lot of times is, I don't need to talk about this. I don't need to talk about this. Like I can work this out between me and my spouse. The reality is that maybe that's the case. Maybe there are some people that have been able to do that. I honestly have never met one yet. I mean that in humility. I have worked, this ministry that we've been involved in started in 2007. There are hundreds of partners, female, women, wives of sex addicts that have come through that faith-based ministry. And I've been treating partner trauma in my private practice for years. The excuse is usually coming from fear. I think you said that in the beginning, that there's so much fear around stepping into the unknown and having to feel those feelings. Because partner betrayal trauma in and of itself is a traumatic event. And now when you're talking about it having to occurring between the most trusted covenant relationship, that adds a whole other layer on top of it. And the fear of having to confront and address all the anger, the sadness, the grief, having to redefine what the marriage relationship is going to look like. Basically what it comes down to is having to confront a change process is very scary for a lot of people. And I try to encourage people to have patience in that process, that recovery journey usually takes between 2 to 5 years, and that's with both people doing the work on the onset. So some people choose to do that. I don't think that that's the best course of action. I obviously have a bias, right? But I know there won't be freedom. I think I can honestly, I don't know, Steve, I don't know if that's your experience, but there really isn't freedom. There's not freedom in that. And God can give you freedom. You can be fully healed in this. Yeah. And if you step into that process.
What I like about what you're doing, it's beyond just a recovery group. You're really helping people move out of that status of almost healed, almost experiencing freedom in this area. Now, Sandy, you're in the Southern California, Westlake area, and if somebody wanted to get in touch with you or see the podcast, how would they do that?
So they can, I didn't come prepared for this. I don't know.
Well, they can, you know what? I'll make it simple for you. If somebody does want to get in touch with you or work with you, they can call 1-800-NEW-LIFE, and then we'll pass that on to you. We'll do that
that would be great. The Recovery Junkies is recoveryjunkies.com. You can go there and find the broadcast there. And we talk about all kinds of addiction issues. We look at things in life through the lens of recovery. Talk a lot about partner betrayal trauma on that podcast too.
Well, I know this. You're doing a great job. That's why we have you on. I also know that a lot of people think they're doing a great job, but they're just scratching the surface in recovery. You're kind of deceiving yourself. When we come back from this break, I'm going to finish up with a few comments about honesty and self-deception.
Life recovery isn't just about making the courageous choice to give up an addiction or dependency. It's a journey towards health, wholeness, and becoming your very best you. If you need resources to help you in your journey, we can help. There are many life recovery resources that you can do on your own, with a group, or with your church. We have Bibles, workbooks, and devotionals that you can use to work your recovery right where you are. That's the beauty of life recovery. To learn more or to get the Life Recovery Bible or any other life recovery resource, visit liferecoverytoday.net or call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. 1-800-NEW-LIFE.
You know, honesty is so important. In fact, everybody calls recovery an honesty program. And one of the ways that people are dishonest is self-deception. You deceive yourself. And you don't mean to, maybe. You blame yourself. You didn't cause it. Or you think you should have been able to predict it or prevent it. You didn't have the power to predict it or prevent it. So don't deceive yourself in the way of keeping yourself down. In fact, if you're honest with yourself, through recovery you're going to see, hey, not only can you not control another person now, but you never, ever could. You just couldn't do it. Sometimes we deceive others and we kind of modify our image and we want them to see something that's not really there. Honesty calls us to drop the mask and that kind of deception also. And then, of course, if we're just out and out lying, we're trying to manipulate the outcome. But here's something that I know to be true. I know that the steps work, if you work them. I know that this combination, having a counselor like Sandy, getting into recovery, working the steps, having a sponsor, very, very few people would ever not reach that point of freedom that Sandy was talking about. We want you to be completely free. Now, if you need some help with that or you need a Life Recovery Bible, you call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE, or if you want to get in touch with Sandy, well, you just give us a call at 1-800-NEW-LIFE. Thanks for joining me. I'll be back next week with another guest and more concepts that would help you in your life recovery.
Thanks for joining us for Life Recovery Today with Stephen Arterburn. We hope this program has helped you integrate God's truth and wisdom into your recovery journey. This program is brought to you by New Life Ministries, and it's your support that keeps this program on the air. When you contact us for any reason, be sure to let us know that you watch on NRB. Call us at 1-800-NEW-LIFE or go to liferecoverytoday.net. Please join us again next week for more Life Recovery Today.